And boom! Just like that, pre-season is over. And you know what that means? We are now into the week that Eddie Howe's sexual Champions League mags make a return to competitive football. But not just a return to competitive football, a return to St James's Park, under the lights, evening kickoff, Saturday night, War Flags doing their thing, new signings to come in, new signings scoring goals, unbeaten in pre-season. Let's get at Aston Villa and continue the momentum. But with pre-season over, it's chance now to discuss some of the key things I think we've taken away from all of the games in different countries against different types of opposition from different leagues, different countries. It's been a positive one, and there's lots of things to discuss on what you can take. Pre-season you take with a pinch of salt in some areas, but you also learn a lot about your team, which is why it's so beneficial. And if you win a cup along the way and fill the trophy cabinet, which is why I'm hungover because I put a day's holiday in to celebrate, then even better. No, I'm joking, I didn't put a day's holiday in, but my God, the Cellar Cup, that was an emotional one, wasn't it? But regardless of that, we're going to talk about those things on this video. The last word on pre-season is coming up, Newcastle fans, so do us a favour, if you don't know what to do by now, and stick around. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, you absolutely beautiful Newcastle fans, and I hope you've got an absolute spring in your step right now, the same as I do. We are literally, as I make this video, 5 days away from Eddie Howe's mags taking to the field again. Oh, the walk to the stadium, the music, war flags, safe standing, which I hope will be a positive. I cannot wait. Watching Joe Linton absolutely terrorise people and obviously get a yellow card in the process. Watching Sven Botman make Ollie Watkins, and I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me, look like Swiss cheese. Cannot wait to see it. Cannot wait to get back. Pre-season's all well and good, and of course I had an amazing time attending every single pre-season game. There's one to put on the CV. Of course, it was good. It's a little bit more relaxed, which you almost enjoy about pre-season, that you're not always tense and on edge because you're not as bothered what the result is, but it's just not the same. It really isn't the same. Get me back in St James's Park and get me back amongst it, because once the season starts, it's a whirlwind, and I feel like this season is going to go quicker than any other. So many competitions, so many midweek matches into Saturday matches. We'll blink and we'll miss it, and who knows where we might finish next season. Let's just enjoy every moment. But if you are new to Black and White Banter and Newcastle fans, do us a favour. Whack that like, whether you're new or whether you're not new, whether you're one of my beautiful, loyal subscribers whose comments I enjoy popping up very much on the daily. Whack that like, and if you like my opinion by the end of this video, whack that subscribe. And if you do want to see a bit of pre-season vlogging, just go down. Got both Cellar Cup games, including the Cup win vlogged. We've got every single game in America, and then you've got the Rangers nightclub on a Tuesday and the washout that was Gateshead. So if you've really missed match vlogs, go down and check them out. But let's get into the nitty gritty. So once the season restarts, I will be doing my last word videos again, following on from every weekend game. So after Aston Villa, we will be talking about everything there is to talk about from Aston Villa in the aftermath. So let's do a pre-season last word. Now, there's lots of things we can talk about, but I'm not going to sit here and do a 45-minute video. I feel bad enough for you guys when I do a 20-minute one, you have to listen that long. So I'm not going to make it that long. So I'm going to try and condense down some of the key things we've learnt. Now, number one has to be the one that I'm probably seeing on everyone's YouTube video title, so let's just get that one out the way so I can actually talk about some things that make me a little bit different, is the squad depth. And the eye-opener that has been pre-season in terms of letting us Newcastle fans know and letting the more, I don't want to use the word deluded, the more impatient Newcastle fans know in this transfer window that we actually currently have a squad that can come in and can do a job. Because there was lots of fans across Twitter as this transfer window's gone on, following Tonali's signing, which feels like, it does feel like a while ago now, that were very, very frustrated. I think Craig Hope, was it? No, sorry Craig, I'm doing you a disservice. Luke Edwards for the Telegraph, even did an article saying how we've got our strategy wrong this summer with Champions League in mind. Literally full article on how this club and this ownership has got the transfer strategy wrong. Maybe some people watching this video still agree with that. I certainly don't. But I was getting a little bit concerned at no left back, which is an area I would like to see strengthen. No attacker at one point. Lots of different areas. And did I expect us to maybe have a window of 6 signings? Maybe. Did I feel unsure on financial fair play? Of course. And I feel like every single Tom, Dick and Harry secretly deep down, no matter what they try and tell you in their newspaper article or on their Twitter feed, X feed, as we have to call it now, Elon Musk, the weird guy, would suggest that when they say they knew about financial fair play and what restraints we had, they didn't really know. And I always go back to that Isak signing last summer, totally out the blue, last 48 hours of the window, bang, £60 million on a striker. So who knows what could happen between now and the end of the window. But getting back to my point, this pre-season, and in particular this Cellar Cup, the fact that we have been able to field 2 completely different teams against 2 teams of European pedigree, Europa League winners, Europa League finalists, Europa Conference League finalists, really top-tier teams compared to what we've been used to playing in the last 15 years, to play them 2 and play 2 different teams and come out not only smelling the roses, but basically being the full garden. 6 goals scored, 0 conceded, and not just that, but comfort in the performance, dominance in the performance, aggression in the performance. And in the second game, a clinical edge as well, which was nice to see. So that was an eye-opener for us all, that maybe all of these players that we've really, really put to the bottom of the pile and just assumed are going out the door, and everyone will have a different opinion on whose names those might be. Maybe we are looking at a good squad. So like Chelsea, Brighton and Aston Villa in America, they were different teams fielded. On the Wednesday to the Friday in particular, Chelsea then Brighton, they were very, very different teams. And it was nice to see. And we've gone the whole pre-season unbeaten. Now, let's just break it down position very quickly. I mean, goalkeeper, Pope, Dubravka, Karius. Left back, Burn, Livramento, which we have to assume, and I will be doing a video on Livramento. Burn, Livramento, Target. Centre back, assuming Cher's injury's not too bad. Botman, Cher, Burn, Lascelles, Dummett, who I thought looked pretty solid against Villarreal. Kraft when he comes back from, when he fully recovers from his injury. Right back, Trippier, Livramento, Manquillo's still at the club. I don't know whether he will be one of the ones who stays, but he's still currently there. Kraft. You then go to midfield. Central, Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, Longstaff, Elliot Anderson. Joe Willock can play there. I feel like I'm probably missing a midfield. I'm probably doing someone a disservice there. On each wing, Murphy, Almiron, Barnes, Gordon. Lewis Miley, that was who. I knew there was a name I was forgetting in central midfield, who has looked very comfortable this pre-season. Then you've got strikers, and it's only ever going to be one under anyhow. Let's face it, it is only going to be one. Anthony Gordon played a very high position in the Euros where he won player of the tournament. He did, because I watched large parts of that. So you've got Isak and Wilson fighting for that number 1 spot, and Gordon maybe playing there as a false striker if he had to. So suddenly you're looking at our team, and that's what this weekend in particular has proved. In 48 hours, 2 different sides. Maybe that squad depth isn't as bad. And do you know what's really helped that? And this is going to be a totally separate point on this video, so I'm not going to touch on it too much. The fact of the emergence of the youngsters and the academy prospects. Elliot Anderson taking pre-season by the scruff of the neck. Lewis Miley doing it. Murphy, who I didn't actually mention for a centre-back cover. Him looking really, really comfortable. And these players have really, really grasped it. So that's given us options that we maybe didn't expect to see. So that's got to be number 1. That maybe going into this season with Carabao, which will come round the corner very quickly. I mean, I think we get a pass because we're in Europe, so we don't go in until the 3rd round this season. Because we're a baller now. FA Cup, Champions League. And obviously the stresses and the strains of the Premier League with the odd midweek game. But generally speaking, week in, week out. So that's got to be number 1. Number 2, Sandro Tonali. We know he eats spaghetti. We know he drinks Moretti. And he hates fucking Sunderland. But I think this pre-season has proved that Tonali, like all international players that Eddie Howe brings in from overseas, generally speaking, since he's been manager of this club, I think Tonali needs to be bedded in slowly. And for me, and I'll talk about as the week goes on who my team will be for Villa, because Eddie Howe has got a headache. Tonali needs to be bedded in slowly. I don't think in any games in this pre-season we have seen Tonali at his full potential. We know he's full of life. We know he covers every blade of grass. We know he's box to box to a degree. We know he's very adaptable in his position. We know he likes to link up. We know he can sit deep if he needs to. We know he likes to take a corner and a free kick. And we know he's very, very good with the ball at his feet in terms of his link-up play, but also just his dominance in that central midfield. And I know all these things from doing enough research. I'm not going to claim I watched lots of AC Milan, but I've done videos on this. I've studied the man since we spent so much money on him. And we haven't seen much of that in pre-season. We haven't. You could even argue the Rangers performance that was very early in pre-season was maybe one of his best games, and that was like a month ago now. America, he was very quiet, very, very quiet. And I thought on Saturday against Fiorentina, against a team from his homeland, we just saw flashes. We know he's good. You know, some of the passes he was playing against Fiorentina were really good. But I just think that the Premier League and the Italian League could not be, and don't get me wrong, Tonali at AC Milan play a high press style, and Eddie Howe will have soaked that up like a sponge. He'll probably give him wet dreams that he's already been used to playing a style that Eddie Howe likes to adopt. But that doesn't change the pace of the leagues, and I think Aston Villa, to throw Tonali in from the start, I think it would be too much of a shock to the system. I think in America we saw Tonali trying to deal with a different pace, because obviously Chelsea and Brighton and Aston Villa played with that free-flowing intensity that we used to from the Premier League, which is unusual to get that in pre-season because we're not used to playing these all Premier League tournaments. And I think he looked like he struggled a little bit. That's probably doing him a disservice to say he was like really bad, but we just never saw everything that he can offer to the football field. And I wouldn't start him again on Saturday against Aston Villa. I wouldn't. I'd certainly look to bring him on depending on how the game goes. That might depend on how many minutes he gets. But because we have central midfield options, he wouldn't be in the team for me. And I don't think Eddie Howe is going to chuck him in from the start. But I don't know because he's got headaches there. So that's got to be number 2. Point number 3, in terms of squad depth, I think the only thing that has been very obvious in picking itself this summer has been our defence. And the reason I say that is obviously Botman and Shea. We don't know how bad Shea's injury is right now. I don't think it's serious as I make this video, but we don't know whether he'll be fit enough for Aston Villa. Trippier, we know, picks himself at right back. He's club captain, of course he does. Nick Pope, goalkeeper, of course he picks himself because of his form last season. Sven Botman, absolute Dutch shithouse. He picks himself. Now, I've been pushing for Matt Targett to come in for a long time at left back, but I've also acknowledged the fact we need another left back. Matt Targett, for me in pre-season, hasn't set the world alight. He's kind of reminded me to go back to the universe where he played every week, which is a long time ago now, because Dan Burn pretty much played the whole of last season. He reminded me that maybe my vision was clouded on what I remember Matt Targett as, and I'll admit that. In the season that we stayed up when Eddie Howe first came in, he's a steady Eddie left back, but he also doesn't offer much going forward. He certainly offers more. He's more mobile than Dan Burn. Of course he is. Dan Burn's like 8'10", but he is just steady Eddie. And I think it's a toss-up. After watching a bit more on Matt Targett in pre-season, and everything we watch in pre-season you take with a pinch of salt, I think the defence going into the first game does pick itself. And against Villarreal, he went with Lascelles, Dummett, Murphy at right back, who I actually thought did a decent job, but he's not going to take Trippier's boots, and Dan Burn. And I'm looking at that defence, and you know, I think everyone in the stadium, even people who haven't visited St James's Park or know much about Newcastle, can probably see that's not going to be anywhere near our starting lineup in defence. Now, all of the selection headaches that Eddie Howe has come further up the field. So I think defence at the moment, Livramento, we can only talk about him as if he's ours, because apparently he is ours. Newcastle just like to take 3 weeks to confirm players these days, apparently. It must be because they're trying to put a lovely video together. But Livramento is going to cause some headaches, and for me, Livramento doesn't come in at right back. He's not an understudy to Trippier, because I don't think you spend close to £40 million on an understudy to a player. We've got Ashby for that, and he's been shipped out. I think Livramento is certainly coming in with a view to playing on the other side, on the left-hand side, and really pushing Dan Burn and Matt Targett, because I'll do a video on him as I keep repeating, but he does offer a little bit more going forward. He's a little bit more direct in that area of the pitch. So I think going into the first game, the defence does pick itself, and that's a little bit frustrating that we haven't managed to bring in a centre-back, because what I worry about with this Newcastle defence, as amazing as it was last season, is it lacks pace. Even Kieran Trippier, he's in his 30s now, is not blessed with crazy pace. Botman and Shea between them, when they are playing a striker who is always on the shoulder and relies on balls, normally on the ground, I think we're pretty good in the air. They're struggling, and I really, really would love to see a defender come in with a bit of pace. So I talk about this squad depth. That's got to be point number 3 for me, without a doubt, is our defence and how that pretty much picks itself. Number 4 has to be the academy, and I talked about it on my 5 things I learned from my America trip. I'm going to talk about it on the last word from pre-season. Elliot Anderson is bullying defenders from very good teams off the ball. He's making things happen in small pockets of space. He's creating chances for himself. He's looking to get shots off. You could even argue over the weekend he was against Fiorentina. He was probably a little bit too unselfish. He should have had more shots in certain areas and certain chances that he had, where he chose for the pass instead. And he just looks brilliant. And he's lit it up for me. He has been the star of pre-season, and I've said that from what feels like day dot now, because he's just looked good in every single match he's played. Lewis Miley has come out smelling the roses, because he made his debut against Chelsea last game of the season last year. We're all delighted to see him. He almost scored, and then he's come in and he's played against Chelsea of all teams in the United States, and he's looked comfortable. He's made Enzo Fernandez look like a Sunday League player. £120 million worth of World Cup winning Enzo Fernandez. He didn't look out of place. He really, really didn't. So that was positive. Murphy at centre-back, who I forgot to mention at the start of this video in terms of squad depth, and I feel terrible on him for not mentioning his name, because he came into the team unexpectedly, and that's a tough thing to do for a young lad, to be thrown in when you sat on the bench not expecting to get many minutes. And he's done remarkable. He really, really has. And remarkable might be a big word, but when you think about the opposition he's played against, he has done remarkable. So that was unexpected, but one of the biggest positives. And I don't think in my Newcastle supporting lifetime I've ever come away from any conversation and said that the biggest positive was our academy. The biggest positive was our academy. Jesus Christ, I literally have to go as far back as Mr. Andy Carroll banging goals in the Championship, our first season in the Championship, to be able to mention anything to do with our academy in a very, very positive light. So that's got to be point number 4. And I guess point number 5, so I don't yab it on too long on this video, because there's so many things you can discuss positions-wise, and I know I talked about Tonali. That was just because he's our high-profile signing this summer. Has to be that any concerns we maybe had, or any Newcastle fans had going into this window, that we maybe haven't added to the squad. We've got too much shite kicking around. We've turned over Brighton. We've given Chelsea a game. We've given Aston Villa a game. We've won at Rangers. We've beat Fiorentina comfortably. We've beat Villarreal. We've smashed Villarreal. And we are looking like we are going into this season meaning some business. And Eddie Howe came out in his press conference after Villarreal and said he still doesn't think he's seen a real top-notch Newcastle performance yet. And I'm really looking forward to the first game of the season. I really, really am. I'm not going to deny that. And that's not because, pre-season we unbeaten, it's amazing. You take pre-season with a pinch of salt. I said on one of my match vlogs, we got beat 6-1 at Leyton Orient under Chris Hughton. And that made us, because players in the dressing room were asked to either leave or stay when we got relegated the first time round, and lots of them stood up and walked out the dressing room and never came back. And that's what made us. So you take good and bad results in pre-season. You can use it to mould you and iron out any concerns, errors, all of this good stuff. But to be unbeaten in the way that we have been, the way that we finished with, is just giving me so much confidence going into this new season, and I cannot wait to get started because we've got lots of games. So this squad depth that the pre-season has really proved to us is going to be so important. And not only that, I feel like in every position people are chomping at the bit. Longstaff's given Tonali mucky looks across the canteen as he digs into his Greggs sausage roll. You've got Lascelles mucky and sharing Botman as he's been doing for a year now. You've got Livramento now getting pretty much the cold shower turned on by Dan Burn and Matt Target for that left-back spot. Everywhere you look, there's a player chomping at the bit. Harvey Barnes and Gordon. My God, them two must be going like rabbits. Not together, because that sounds weird. In training, they must be literally trying to skin every man, trying to get every shot off, because I think realistically Barnes knows he's only going to play on the left, he's not going to play on the right. Gordon has not played on the right-hand side, as far as I understand, in pre-season at all. So this is players in every position chomping at the bit, and we don't even need to mention Callum Wilson and Isak, because them two are literally having arm wrestles in the dressing room just to prove who's got the stronger right arm. Never mind who's getting picked for that first game of the season. So that fills me with so much confidence, and that's one of the main thing to round up that I'm taking away from pre-season, is that we can compete with European teams. We can compete with Premier League teams. We've added, we haven't lost, because we are not a selling club anymore. And why the fuck shouldn't we be confident going into this new season? We've fielded 22 players across 2 matches in a weekend and won 6-0 against 2 European sides. If that's not going to give you confidence going into the first game of the Premier League season, I don't know what will, Newcastle fans. So, the videos are going to keep coming this week. There's so much to talk about before we dive into Aston Villa. Predicted lineups, midfield headaches, Livramento confirmed. Fucking finally, that would be a nice thing. But Newcastle fans, I want you to let me know what you think about pre-season. Do you take much of it seriously? Do you take it all with a pinch of salt, or maybe there's something I've missed that you think is a massive plus? Because there are so many topics that I didn't mention that I could have mentioned, and individual players in particular. So if there's a player that's lit up your pre-season, let me know in the comments, because I absolutely love reading them. And I just want to say very, very quickly, I'm loving the love for Black and White Banter at the moment. I spoke to Diane, if you're watching this one, at the Metro station on Sunday. She came and spoke to me with her family. Absolutely lovely woman, lovely family. I've had just the conversations that I've had during this pre-season have just been incredible. And there's just a little bit of growth for the channel, which I do this because I love it. I do this because what else I've got the choice. I can either watch Coronation Street or talk about my football club. If someone likes my opinion, then great, but I actually like sitting and talking to a camera, because otherwise I'm talking to my dog, and Maggie gets so sick of me talking about Newcastle when all she wants to talk about is Bones and when she's going to be allowed to go for her next walk. So thank you very much for the love, Newcastle fans. I'll see you on what will be plenty more videos coming up before that first game of the season. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Eddie Howe's first game of the season, lads.